But let's go through this Ben Shapiro thing, because I want to. This is actually, I think it's fairly important, frankly. Now, we mock Ben Shapiro on this program. He, of course, was sold as what was it? How is he billed now?
He was the cool kids philosopher per the New York Times.
The cool kids philosopher. And there have been now multiple instances where Ben Shapiro, his writing, his Twitter, his show, all of what he produces has been cited on multiple occasions now, various instances, by people who have gone on to do horrible things. One who shot up a mosque up in Canada cited Ben Shapiro in terms of like the invasion and how dangerous it was to us and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, he cited Ben Shapiro. But you can't be responsible for who your fans are. Ben Shapiro, however, but you can be responsible for what you put out there. Now, Ben Shapiro made a point recently that the shooter in Pittsburgh was following a similar ideology as Ilhan Omar. But of course, that person didn't in any way cite Ilhan Omar. But what if that person had? What if it was actually true that the ideology was the same? Now, it's not. I don't think it is at all. But what if that person had said, well, forget about Ilhan, forget about anybody, just in general. What if there was a person, public figure, who set up an equation, let's say, A plus B equals C. And someone went out and did something horrible and said, well, I was radicalized. I got into the modality of thought to go do something horrible because I listened to this public figure. Well, that would be bad. But what if that person said, I got radicalized because I listened to that public figure, and in fact, this very act that I did because A plus B equals C. What if they said that? What if the connection wasn't just that this person generally influenced me, but this person generally influenced me, and specifically, I did this act and reiterated a formula that person who inspired him espoused. I want you to look at that, just contemplate that generally. What kind of responsibility would that person who is espousing that stuff have? I don't know if they would have direct responsibility, but they should look at themselves in the mirror, and anybody who's supportive of that person should look at themselves in the mirror, because that's exactly the situation we have with Ben Shapiro. So you have this story of an Indiana man sentenced to federal prison for vandalism at a Carmel synagogue. A Carmel, I think, is a town in Indiana. Nolan Brewer, 21, of Eminence, Indiana, was sentenced on Monday for conspiring to violate the civil rights of Congregation Sharia Tefillah, the Jewish synagogue. Brewer and his wife, Kiyomi, painted Nazi flags and iron crosses on the wall of the trash enclosure at the synagogue. And in the defense, Kiyomi says that she was radicalized. One of the influences that radicalized her was Ben Shapiro. Here it is. This is from the filing. She then moved on to writings by Ben Shapiro and articles on Breitbart News, which bridged the gap to the notorious white supremacist and anti-Semitic propaganda site Stormfront. Nolan Brewer, her husband, for his part, bought into the propaganda. He wanted to please his new wife, and the material seemed to make sense to him despite buying into these ideas. Nolan had always been rather docile and passive person and extremely averse to violence or lawlessness. By all accounts, prior to this offense, Nolan was not known to have ever even broken a minor rule. So there's the defense arguing that Breitbart and Ben Shapiro articles on Breitbart was a gateway to Stormfront. That's pretty bad. But then Kiyomi ended up becoming an active participant in a white supremacist and radical right-wing communication on a server called Discord. Discord has many channels. One of them apparently was a white supremacist one. After moving in with Nolan and his parents, Kiyomi spent several hours a day on Discord while Nolan was at work. Kiyomi found pseudo-academic propaganda that purported to prove her white supremacist beliefs. Every evening, Kiyomi would share her views with Nolan and ask him to read articles she had found. According to Nolan, she began with right-wing yet mainstream views as those presented on Fox.
The Discord server was related to Identity Europa, who was also connected to the Christchurch killer.
So, on this Identity Europa, according to this story in the Indy Star here, where is that now? One of the reasons why these guys chose that synagogue was because, quote, well, I'll read from this piece. Prosecutors said evidence showed the vandalism was not a spur-of-the-moment childhood prank, but rather an attack fueled by Nolan Brewer's belief in Nazism. He told investigators that he and his wife, a minor, targeted the synagogue because it was full of ethnic Jews, authorities says. And then in the records of the exchanges between Nolan Brewer and people on this board, this Discord, they go back and forth, and Nolan Brewer says, we were talking about that, and Peter was getting in contact with my wife, and then so this BB, I don't know who that BB is, this is the guy connected with the Europa. She's on the forum too? Yeah, she's on the forum because I was trying to get her to learn about my perspective on life. Says the guy. But, says Nolan Brewer, so what did he or she or whoever it is to tell you to do? This is trying to figure out what Nolan Brewer's plan is. He said, I'm going to look at a map of Indiana and find all the mosques and synagogues that are there to see which ones are the biggest and which ones aren't, are made of like ethnic Jews rather than religious Jews. And then you need to get this, and then hide your face and go. And apparently, this is based on the idea, they said, get as close to the synagogue as possible. We get in the synagogue and then do the dumpster. But the bottom line is, why did they care about ethnic Jews as opposed to religious Jews? Apparently, that was a thing that neo-Nazis tell themselves about Hitler. Didn't have a problem with the religious Jews. It was the ethnic Jews. This delineation between good Jews and bad Jews, as if the good Jews were religious ones. I mean, this is where Brewer says, okay, and I guess, what did he tell you? What's the purpose of doing it at the synagogue? He said, because it's full of ethnic Jews, which is the main thing. The religious Jew part being a religious Jew wasn't the deal for Hitler. It was the ethnic Jews. Because there was like 2% of the population represented. So race versus religion, right? So this distinction of religious Jews being good, ethnic Jews being bad, it turns out that the same person who radicalized this guy's wife has the same exact theory. Here's Ben Shapiro back in November of 2011. The Jewish people has always been plagued by bad Jews who undermined it from within. In America, these bad Jews locally largely vote Democrat. Now, wait a second. I cannot assess from this that he's talking about bad Jews are just ethnic Jews and the good Jews are religious Jews. But in 2016, he clarifies for us. No, it doesn't matter that Bernie Sanders is ethnically Jewish. He's a Jew in name only. What? And he quotes from dailywire.com, his own site. There are two types of Jewishness: ethnic Judaism and actual belief in and practice of Judaism. By the first standard, Sanders is Jewish. By the second, not in the slightest. But wait a second. That still doesn't mean that he thinks ethnic Jews are bad. Here is Ben Shapiro just weeks ago on a BBC interview. People pointed out this interview because Ben Shapiro made an ass of himself because he assumed that the questioner, who was asking rather reasonable questions, must have been some type of leftist because he was asking reasonable questions. Turns out it was a guy who turns out to be basically a Tory, right wing by any standards. But he wants to know about this whole good Jew, bad Jew thing. And Ben Shapiro lays it out, just like the guy who was trying to impress his wife, who was radicalized by Ben Shapiro, impress his wife by going and committing vandalism at a synagogue. Here is Ben Shapiro explaining to the world what a good Jew and a bad Jew is.
Oh, well, again, with Mr. Obama, you said Jew, and you're Jewish yourself. I only mention that because, to put this in context, the Jews who vote for Obama are, by and large, Jews in name only. Ginos, you call them.
My statement was based on the fact that Jews in the United States, as an ethnic group, are largely irreligious, which is true by every single poll. Jews are the most irreligious group in the United States. As an Orthodox Jew who actually takes Judaism seriously, the point that I am making is that most Jews who are ethnically Jewish are not religiously Jewish in any context.
No. The point you were making is that Jews who vote for Obama are Jews in name only.
I said that, yes, that is correct. That Jews who voted for Barack Obama, a progenitor of the Iran deal, a person...
Right. We don't need to know all that because that's irrelevant. We know that he thinks that bad Jews, let's bring up the bad Jews again, right? The bad Jews vote for Democrats. And he's saying that those people who vote for Democrats are Jews in name only. He's an Orthodox Jew. He takes Judaism seriously. The other ones are ginos, bad Jews. Like the kind, according to this white supremacist Nazi, those are the ones that Hitler cared about. Now, Ben Shapiro has a list of mistaken things he said on his website. I don't know if this is on there. He was defending it 2 weeks ago. Is he going to add to this? How many things on a list can you put and escape culpability for, despite the fact that it's inspiring people directly to do horrible things? How many times can you get away with doing that and still have the New York Times call you the philosopher for cool kids? How many times are we supposed to take this guy seriously when, if he was a Muslim imam, they would end up like literally putting this guy in jail, if not U.S. assassinated a guy because he was going around an American in Yemen. I mean, but yet we support this guy. Many Jews are Jews in name only. In 2011, I wrote a column about American Jews voting for Barack Obama and stated, Jews who vote for Obama are by and large Jews in name only. That is what? That's on his mistaken thing I said page?
Yeah, that's the defense.
Yet he defends it on BBC. I don't know when he put that on the paper, on the thing, but he defended the whole concept on the BBC.
He also suggests that he's only been saying that in 2011, which we have examples of him saying it since then.
In 2016. I mean, give me a break. Give me a break. What a scam this guy is running, but it's worse than that because he's literally now inspiring these attacks and denying it. And he came out and he said when people pointed this out, he says, people are claiming I directed this attack. Nobody's claiming you directed it. Here's the claim. You inspire the people who carry it out, and you also reiterate the exact rationale that they used to attack this synagogue. The exact. He said, yes, if there's one thing I'm known for as one of the most prominent Orthodox Jews, targets of the alt-right and critics of the alt-right in America, is directing Nazis to attack synagogues. What garbage. No, but you do lay out the equation. Bad Jews and good Jews, and who are the bad Jews? In a way that the neo-Nazis have fully embraced. A lot of this stuff comes from the Twitter handle @_al-Maqwa. People can check it out. We'll put a link to this so that you can share it with your friends. But this is disgusting. And Ben Shapiro should have to address this in a serious fashion. And any of those people who have written fawning profiles of this guy need to revisit this. This is what they mean by intellectual dark web. You know what when they say dark web, they're talking about things like Gab and all the other places where the neo-Nazis and supremacists gather to discuss their stuff. It's not a coincidence that they borrowed that construct. This is really disgusting stuff. Ben Shapiro should be held to account for this. Really held to account. Well, maybe he'll add a couple more things to his web page that has stupid things he said he continues to reiterate and justify.
Yeah, it'd be better named the stupid things I said that weren't really that stupid when you look into them, because he also defends his Arabs like to live in sewage thing by first saying that he was talking about Palestinian leadership and then saying, oh, actually I was talking about all Palestinians because of poll numbers.
Unbelievable. Really unbelievable.